Okay, so for one, it's been almost a year of being in the hospital, and many things have happened. Not to paint it in the bad way, uh, ultimately, it's good that I figured out what's happening and have gotten help for those things. It's been a couple of, let's say, gnarly moments where there's neither here nor there. Complications. For one, uh, major sickness with whatever virus it was. So I was admitted to the hospital twice. Whilst battling everything else. One of the things being a version of COVID-19. Very much sick for several months, coughing, difficulty breathing. Don't know if it was that, along with having no immune system because of the main thing, which was chemotherapy, in which this journey itself, I've gone through 3 cycles, 4 cycles altogether. First cycle was really intense. I had a big rash all over my body, skin peeling, lost my hair, it's extremely weak, couldn't walk properly, extreme pain in my bones at times, standing up, so I was bedridden for a good couple months. Then I was under observation till I got my strength back. The immune system was definitely struggling. That time I did my best not to get sick, but then I had COVID-19 sneak in there. But before that I had a lung infection sneak in there, so I was at one time battling with that. I had 2 bronchoscopies. Each one had put me out in a state of recovery, whereas my voice didn't feel right. My voice was raspy. I couldn't really talk. I couldn't sing. I went through that twice. The second time they found a pneumonia. They called the COVID pneumonia. Was admitted again to the hospital, and I don't know which month that was, and this before Christmas, several things, coughing, constant fevers, over 100 Fahrenheit at times I didn't want to admit, and just when I was out, I went back in to the hospital like 3 times within a week. Seemed like as I just came back home, I ended up right back at the hospital, which was very frustrating, and put into the COVID ward, in which I had no idea why. Before that, breathe. It's just a very long story. Well, I was put in isolation several times, even before I had COVID, because I had chemical pneumonia. Or not chemical pneumonia. I had a COVID. Well, I had a form of pneumonia, which is not a good thing to have when you have chemotherapy, which means you have zero immune system because the drugs that you take are actually killing your immune system, in which the medicine, the thing that's killing the leukemia, is supposed to help rid your system of it, but in the process, your body gets all of these toxins, and your immune system is also being destroyed at the same time. So I've had no time for recovery. Long story short, it's still a long story. It's been very difficult to message people while I'm going through all of this, in the sense trying to catch up and explain the medical procedures. Ultimately, I'm making this video to tell everyone I finally recovered from COVID-19. It was Omicron, and then it was just a vicious one added on top of that. It was just horrible. Let me just tell you, I was filling cups and cups and cups and buckets of coughing, phlegm, and just not being able to sleep. So I was sleepless, and I had no immune system. So it was just a lot to go through. It wasn't fun. Thanks to my friends who, when I have the energy, have been there to consult, speak with me on the phone. Basically living my life in the hospital. And I have a big decision going back into the hospital. We'll be having a stem cell transplant, perhaps with the marrow being fully replaced with a donor, which may be my brother in this case. So thanks to him for going through so much of the testing right now. Basically, it's been a lot of back and forth. I could have a life of transfusions, in which my case specifically is I don't have enough oxygenated blood that I'm producing myself, even though I've recovered. The levels seem to be quite low, so the explanation is that perhaps I was just like this for most of my life and I had no idea. So I've been running on empty all my life, unbeknownst to me. But the problem is when that gets taken advantage of by something like leukemia, it affects my whole bloodstream, which affects all the organs in your body. So the good thing is we did catch it early, but it's not one thing, and it doesn't have stages per se, but it can possibly affect everything. So I didn't have enough oxygen in my body, in my brain at times. Also means that in this state, given to bleeding, is not good. You could bleed to death, essentially. Not that that's fun, but that's why I was a nosebleeder for most of my life. It's coming to terms with that, and at least I have answers. But so that's trying to explain everything that's happened in one sitting down session. So I've been home for a couple of months, but I'm still in the hospital every week. So the solution here being is that if I get this stem cell transplant to work how it's supposed to, then my stem cells will be reset with new stem cells, in which I'll be a completely different individual, producing the amount of blood platelets that I need to, so that I can actually have the oxygenation in my blood at optimal levels, and that it'll help me altogether energy-wise, and that I won't have to repeatedly get transfusions for the rest of my life. So, well, everything has been a risk up to this point. There's been a lot of things that didn't go right. There's been a lot of bleeding scenarios where I ended up at the hospital again. And there's been some scenarios where I was at the hospital and I got rushed to emergency room, including heart palpitations and almost apparently having heart attack. So this is a lot. I've been thinking perhaps I should only tell people when they ask, but that's had me having to repeat myself over and over and over again, which is kind of tiresome, especially when you're feeling good. You don't really want to talk about that. So I figure the easier way is to just have fun, do it this way. And not so much as this is farewell per se, but posterity's sake, I honestly don't know how this is gonna go. It's a risk on a risk, and I'm thinking through a lot of conversations I've had, a lot of breakthroughs, getting through the most impossible odds or slim odds, and getting a good state of consciousness back after emergency scenarios, living in the emergency room. And that's unfortunately where I got sick with COVID, because there were so many people sick there, sharing the same washrooms and everything, and I don't know, it was just a living nightmare, if anything. And the thing is, I might be putting myself through a whole different thing now, so it's a realist thing I have said here. But yeah, not to sound somber, it's just that I'm doing this really late, and I have an appointment tomorrow, and sometimes I actually just can't sleep because of everything I have to do, or I'm feeling some pain from the other day, and I do my best not to mention things that there's no point. If it just feels horrible, you just have to get through it, right? So that's been my thing, and I felt no need to really publicly tell everybody what's going on, but it seems that within this week, I've been a lot of people asking me how I am. That's kind of funny, as I'm guessing I'm the one that usually reaches out, and if I don't, I wondered people don't really reach back. I guess that's been, well, not the truth, but the tables have turned. I've spent a lot of my life helping people, being a kind ear to a lot of scenarios, people going through trouble, and it's been drilled in my head, my doctors and my spiritual doctor advisor, people who are acting as my psychologists, to realize I can't expend the energy for me to be that anymore. As much as it's my natural inclination, perhaps the lesson is learning how to receive, as I've always been giving down to the last ounce of energy I have. It's always a lesson for people who help, and that's been, fortifying my conversations with nurses and doctors who have those, views on just how they carry themselves, although they're getting paid big bucks for it. But it's to say, doing my best to listen. Had so many strange moments, I guess, an influx of people that the conversation can't really be about anything else, perhaps to those I've told to. And of course there's natural worry there, because it's mortality, but that's life, right? And well, everyone goes through their own space of being. I don't really feel that different, let's say, on the whole, psychologically, but I'm very thankful that I have mindfulness practices, and I play guitar, and I meditate, and I write, and I draw, and I do all those things. And one of the things is now that I've been in a bubble, not being able to interact with anyone for fear of me getting sick or catching something from someone. And that's the lesson, is now I've had every horrible thing under the sun, and I have to look out for anything. And my immune system's being quite resilient when I've technically had no immune system, which might be a miracle in itself, but it definitely fought really hard. I was wondering about that, fighting, giving my all, or just accepting a plateau of frustration and horribleness. So, I think in this way, filming myself, maybe some form of catharsis. Here, as oftentimes I'm not in this place. they'll know it's a natural place to be vulnerable and not exactly invincible, but still connecting to the breath. And, I had a lot of fears with essentially how everyone else reacted. It's quite strange. People were more upset than I was. I was happy that I was finding a way towards what's been bothering me for a while, and some of it I kept quiet, but in my push to finish school, which diploma is here. I definitely felt I fought hard to get this. And that was interesting too, because blessing in disguise, I wasn't really too hot on like where my friends were at, or while I was struggling through this, I didn't really seem like I had a lot of support originally, that I was going to get through it based on I had never done that before, and then I've always let school fall by the wayside. As for having enough money or having a relationship, dog me into misery and not finishing anything, and that was weighing heavy, and I really put my all into this one. So now I can say the reason I dress the way I do and think about fashion is because I went to school for it. It's actually the other way around. I was already into it before, and now I have this thing that says I can answer questions about it and work in a place professionally, and that's awesome. That was something I actually still feel good about, and I like to say on a positive note that all of my communique with teachers there, George Brown, has helped me greatly. I was finishing my last project in my hospital bed, my first week in the hospital, making sure I did everything right, and I was thinking, well, that's the thing, I'm here with these people that have gotten their expertise in caring for people, and they're not gonna shortcut anything. And I was thinking that lately, that I quite intense in when I want to go get something done, that sometimes I just keep it to myself because it strikes people as too much. And well, you live your life anyway, chasing the questions that you have. And perhaps it seemed like it was almost my time. And then I woke up in the hospital a couple of times. And I guess that's where I understand when I tell people how some people literally just got back to me the other day. So I actually don't know what to say to, are you okay? How are you doing? To honestly answer that question now is, I'm actually very bewildered that went through so much pain and anguish, uncertainty, aloneness, which was different from loneliness. That's what I found interesting. I knew that I was alone in this for a good time, but I didn't feel bad in a lonely way. I just felt like perhaps if I was with somebody, that it would have been too much for them and they would have left. So in a way, I was actually glad I was alone. That was one of my reckonings. Not alone in the sense that I could not be around people. I just mean I was around other patients, I was around nurses and hospitals, but I was alone in the sense that maybe it's the creative sense that I don't really have to have anyone to understand, like, why I make things or why I do things that seem to make no sense in a logical way, but I have a feeling. And I'm just thankful that I wasn't completely alone in another sense, that the few people I told checked in on me. And I guess in that state I realized even the other state of aloneness, which was, as I've shared with family recently, it seems like I'm just talking to a wall sometimes, where why am I even saying this stuff? People aren't in the experience, and that's why I had been in a state of, what's the point? I should just keep this to myself. Because in explaining it doesn't change what I went through and what's happening. I guess the real sadness was that I had to mostly spend my time in the hospital, and I was unable to do things that brought me joy, like play guitar or draw, or because of the lack of time or space to myself, that every moment is a medical procedure. Every moment my train of thought's broken by a question about how I'm doing, and I really crave just being by myself, just like I am now. But I feel if I just point the camera, the reality of my space, which is surreal, you know, it's really the truth of it all. And you know, it's more than heavy, and it's more than one thing. I figure if I can get through this, as I already have, that I give back in some way. I already have, whoever I can, with my sense of humor and jokes in the hospital, all inside jokes. And you know, thinking I don't really have to matter that much all the time. Like, the first time I went outside, there was just so much space, so I was so used to four walls. And can't tell you how good I felt when I saw the sky. And I walked up and it was endless. And even though I couldn't really walk properly, I felt like I better watch out. I might lose the strength and fall down. My whole center of balance was off. But I was happy first time I did a lap. And that my feet didn't hurt, my legs didn't hurt. I was so happy. That was probably the happiest days. Although I'm not experiencing that as much because of it's not sunny outside right now. It's snowing like a lot, and it kind of piled on yesterday. And definitely had thoughts of feeling my uselessness as I'm not technically supposed to shovel or exert my energy. I'm not even supposed to do a light run yet. So I'm doing my best to listen to the doctors. I figure this is the best time to do this kind of thing too, because in the morning I just have so many interruptions. And initially I did set up a space to have conversations with people, which is what this creation was. And there's that thing too, everyone's saying don't be on the phone too much, don't talk to people too long. Gotta mind your energy, what you have. That's been the thing, kinda even sneaking some time to speak with people on a live scenario, because speaking to them in person is something of a past scenario. It seems like so long ago. Most of my life has been be at home, entertain yourself, don't be around people that may give you some sickness. Be careful, don't bleed. You're not exactly hemophiliac, but it's kind of close. So that's been a wake-up call. So back on track to what's literally within the week now. I've been doing tests every day to make sure I'm at tip-top shape. Seems like I don't have anything right now, which is a miracle. I don't have any of the COVID things, but I'm going to get tested for that again. So who knows if that comes up the way it is, I'll be completely confused. I may even question the test. Dare I question it? But yeah, there'll be the whole infusion of stem cells, but before that I have to get a catheter in my chest, which to transfuse the stem cells. I already have 2 catheters in my right arm right now. Sometimes it makes me feel like a robot. Robot blood machine where I can dispel or receive blood so quickly because of this thing in my arm. Spare you the gory details. And so, yeah, it's quite, I thought, mostly living like we did in the past, where I've mostly spent time to myself, not really checking anything on social media, not really interacting so much with whoever's opinion is about this or that. I'm just being in my therapy and catching people up on that. I've been quietly creating, as you probably guessed. Everything you see is always a creation. And yeah, just the real deal. It's a winter night. Been really enjoying the space and places of no noise. Not having to answer any questions. Really enjoyed that. You know, really taking a break from entertaining or having to be expected to behave a certain way for whoever you know me as. Not that it has to be quite meta, but you know, how many times do others think, how much time do we really have? I'm not really thinking like that. I'm actually still pretty much enjoying myself as much as I can, because when I'm not doing any things I've been saying, you know, what are you doing in the life of the living? I'd rather be in the life of the living than the land of complaining. And I think that was the great gap I saw within the few people I told, and pretty much the lack of response to quite a heavy thing as this, or the too much response where everyone was crying. And then I was sitting there feeling quite awkward, like, well, I'm not in the casket yet, I'm still here, so don't know how to feel, and perhaps have a cry with some people as I realize maybe I ain't being struck as much in that vein as people expect me to be, or lest I just be sitting in a corner waiting to go. Yet, speaking that way, I've been told not to do that as much, to look at the bright side, which I am. And with nurses who've had the exact scenario I've had, they've helped me say perhaps this is a time to really see who really should be in your life. Get all the vampires out of the way. All the people that don't know, they don't value life, or they don't value you. They just want what they want from you. And that's been a tough one, honestly. And being if they hear the news, of course, everyone may come around. So I've been to and from whether how much of this I should be public with, but perhaps I should begin to do that. Still not sure how much I should make this public, as maintaining any sense of privacy now the world has been in great question. I mean, even all the ads I see on my social media related to cancer, and that's been my joke. It's like, I'm a cancer, astrologically, so how can cancer get cancer if I am a cancer? Like, that's impossible. That's been the joke that's been told quite in a vein I'm not supposed to joke about, but me being me, that's just how I joke. And I'm still here, so let's rejoice while we can, right? So that's the news. Having the transplant sometime before April, getting my catheter operation on the 17th, doing tests, scans, x-rays, teeth x-rays, mouth x-rays, body x-rays. Been very tired. Not really. I was thinking exhausted isn't the word, just tired that sometimes I think when you get scheduled to do all these tests all in 1 week that people forget. Perhaps I'd like to do something else or talk about something else aside from this, but that's why I'm making this video. So yeah, quite a resilient fella, yet using the technology so that I don't have to repeat myself. I've been practicing doing that anyway because not everyone knows, and I'm learning as I go on my merry way also, that but looking to focus on what needs to be done and get it done. That's the thing. And along that way, doesn't have to be pain. It's dismal as it's a miracle, and I'm very thankful that people care and have been asking, and I've been very thankful that I live in 2023 and we have different technologies and different therapies which did not exist even within the last 5 years or more, 2 years, dare I say. Been doing very new therapies that have been working very well, and it would be quite irresponsible, I surmised, that if I have these opportunities that I should use them, even though they have been quite risky. And after April, I will perhaps go through many side effects, or perhaps they'll affect me less. I'm hoping they affect me less, and then the year or two after, I hope the stem cells graft on well and that I don't have a rejection of the stem cells. So if we can just focus on that mostly, that's the thing I've been gearing myself to focus on. Last week or so I've also been preparing living in the hospital for a month again. So I've been gathering all the things I need now that I'm a pro at living at the hospital, even though the joke with some of the nurses was, now that I've left, I never want to see you here again, which is its own joke. And I have to say, choosing to be social with every person that I come along with has been my saving grace, that whenever in the hospital, it's like everybody walking past saying, "Hey Jay, hello Jay," which I didn't realize was actually quite heartwarming for me after I came home the first time, and it felt quite strange that there wasn't a doctor asking me anything or there wasn't a nurse checking my vital signs, which is a strange, it's a strange let's say, de-escalation of the life in the hospital, where I've met countless doctors and nurses and students becoming doctors, and I did my best to say, I'm really glad that you chose this line of work. You're all very made out of something every day. You're dealing with emergency scenarios, and that was also my saving grace, to connect to the humans that were giving their life purpose towards this. Is quite amazing. My joke often's been, every time I talk to people, it doesn't sound like English. It's quite medical speak, so every time I say goodbye or I joke with people, I say, okay, well, it's off to medical school now that I'm done, so I can help people with knowledge. Well, one thing I've been doing has been volunteering my time to studies, because I'm not really doing anything else sometimes. I've already donated bone marrow to studies for people who are going through the same thing. That in my specific scenario, there might be somebody out there has the same scenario, so I've given freely extra specimens and marrow and blood. It's a thing I agreed to do. I can't necessarily donate money, perhaps I can donate cells to study, to research. So I'd recently signed something that I said yes, getting so much help right now only because of the study and the giving of people that give their blood. If because of giving I wouldn't be alive, so how can I give? And so in this next, rather jump into this experiment that I hope will work, I am also giving portions of my blood to research study, in hopes that people with a similar condition as mine may figure out something that's going on, because they can only do study on real specimens, right? So again, this is not goodbye, but it is a summation of everything I've been going through the last year. And I guess feel free to share. I'm not sure how public this is. It's really the feeling that some people were not quite with me in divulging my hardship. That was maybe difficult for me to realize. It's a one-way street with some people. So when you're in a bad spot, or a challenging spot, I can't say it was all bad, that you really know who your friends are, and I'm really glad for the doctors and my family being there. Just thinking lately how much Dad had to see very horrible scenes of blood gushing out of me. Just, that's why he freaks out. I can understand that now. Yep, there were a couple of times that I almost, just recently told some friends recently, almost choked to death on my own blood clot. It was quite a scene. Not that I want to relive that again, but for at least 3 times I bled profusely. One of them, that's the most dramatic, and I must thank Dr. Jacob for those extravagant, amazing machines that literally sucked the blood clot out of my throat, and I spat it into my lap and gasped for air, and then I was again in the hospital for a week with a rhino up my nose, being told I lost 2 liters of blood, and that it's not a good idea for you to go home. We have to watch you. You can't possibly imagine my bewilderment. I think that was story number 3 that I figured I should keep to myself. Even that week, I didn't tell anyone I was in the hospital again. It was literally getting messages from people saying, "Hey man, it's good to see that you're out of the hospital now." And I didn't have the heart to say, literally, I just got rushed back in. It's quite funny. I had a meeting and a checkup, and everything was okay. And then just as I left the room, I had a profuse bleed of the nose, which led to that clot and almost choking to death on it. And that was the closest call, I would say, that I guess I'm really glad to be here after that. Not that I've really spoke about it too much in a way that I treat it as like, well, it's a good thing that didn't happen. And Dr. Jacob, the ENT, definitely knew what he was doing, because I couldn't speak. I literally was pointing in my throat which way to suck the clot out. So yeah, I guess I'll just leave it at there for now. I don't know if this counts as another podcast. There's a very long break. It's the phone. Phone's been a lot to get back to sometimes. I am thankful that people care, and perhaps as many times that I have to just feel like being. This is just one thing, I'm going through it, I have been going through, and things are actually really quite good right now health-wise, but the thing is, with the transplant, I'm pretty much willfully putting myself through a more challenging, worser version. Not necessarily worser, their intentions are good, but the therapy that I'll be taking again will crush my immune system to a dangerous low in which to bring the stem cells in to transform my whole blood system and marrow. So that's the nitty-gritty, gnarly thing, is that I have to willfully kind of kill my cells, not myself, but kind of is that. And then technically I'll transform into a whole other cell will grow based on the donor will pretty much inherit their immune system. It's quite a wild But with that, there's a lot of recovery. It's not naturally a natural process. It's quite science fiction, if I can think of it like that. I didn't really know that's what I was getting into originally after all the reading and the research. And I just want to say thanks, everybody. Love and care for a lot of you. I'm gonna miss home for a while. It's gonna be in hospital again. So this is a very super serious video blog that I'm wondering if I should even send it out or how to. But that's the reality. So, signing off. Vibration of the One. Jason, your friend, your family member, your person who cares about the world. Not ready to go quite yet. Stubborn and resilient as I am. Wish me the best of luck. And the craziest mission yet. We've gotten to this point.